18 days your machine will be, Microsoft can say that, 18 hours in a year, 18 days, sorry, 18 days and 6 hours in a year, your machine can, go down. Okay, so you are agreeing to that SLA if you are using managed disk. Okay, and if you are using standard SSD, because you have three types of hard disk, right? We have standard SSD, standard SSD, and premium SSD. So if you are taking standard SSD, then Microsoft guarantees 99.95% SLA. And if you are taking premium SSD or ultra disk, so Microsoft guarantees 99.9 SLA. So if you still, if you calculate in that way, if you go 99.5, right? Yeah. So if you are, you can check the difference. So it will be 1 day instead of 18 days. By just taking a managed SSD, you will reduce the downtime from 18 days to 1 day. And if you take premium SSD or ultra disk, you will reduce it to 8 hours. Okay. So there are other ways also you can do that. Next is if you are using availability zones. Okay, we discussed about Microsoft availability zones. We'll use that in practical. So if your virtual machines are more than 1, 2 or more machines, if you deploy them across an availability zone, so then Microsoft guarantees you 99.99 SLA. So that will reduce the downtime more. And if you are deploying them in availability set, okay, not availability zone, but in availability set, then the downtime will decrease to 99.95. So the more highly available is availability zones. Okay, so Microsoft guarantees more uptime if you are provisioning the virtual machines in availability zones. So availability zones are the, we have Azure regions, right? India is one region. So availability zones are nothing but the physical data centers. Okay. So what are the, availability
and what
options?
Is the availability set?
Availability set, we'll come to that next. We have that. Okay. So what happens, right? We want our services to be always be highly available, right? So we can have like planned maintenance or unplanned hardware maintenance or unexpected downtime. Okay. So we want our resources to be always available if we have these three issues. Okay. Okay. So how Microsoft help us in achieving high availability in terms of securing ourselves from planned maintenance or unplanned hardware maintenance or unexpected downtime. So Microsoft offers you three services. One is called availability sets, other is availability zones, and virtual machine scale sets. Okay. So we'll start with availability set. So availability set refers to 2 or more virtual machines deployed across different fault and update domains. Okay. So there is a concept called fault domain and update domain in Azure, which will come next slide. I'll explain that. So you understand there is a concept called fault domain and update domain. So when Azure will make sure that when you deploy an VM, okay, it is distributed across the fault domains and update domains. Okay. So okay, we'll go to. So what is a fault domain? A fault domain is logical grouping of underlying hardware, okay, that share a common source of power and network. Okay, so in data centers you will have different racks, right? So a fault domain will be one rack where the power supply and the network switch is common. Okay, so if there is a failure in the fault domain, then all the resources in that fault domain are unavailable. Okay, so you have more than one fault domain. And what is an update domain? Within that fault rack, you will have different servers, right? Different VMs and every machines. Okay, servers. So those are called one update domain is one servers in one fault domain. So if you look this image, so you have this fault domain, here. So this is one rack. So you have different servers in that rack. So this is one update domain. This is one update domain. This is one update domain, and this is a different fault domain, and this is a fault different domain. They have their own update domain. Okay. So VMs, when you provision any VM in availability scale set, Azure automatically assigns the VMs an update domain and a fault domain. You need not, you don't explicitly and tell that this VM should be in this fault domain and this update domain. Azure will automatically do that. The only thing you have to make sure is when you create the VM, you have to apply the availability set. So as we understood earlier, availability set gives us the availability of cell of up to 99.95%. Okay. The other important thing we have to, yeah.
Asif, can you just repeat update domain once, please?
Okay. So update domain is nothing but the, these things, the servers which are there in the rack physically. These are logically grouped in one fault domain. Okay. So these are the individual servers. So you can have your virtual machine in this server or in this server. Okay. Microsoft has, in each availability zone, there are up to 3 fault domain and up to 20 update domains. So as a customer, you can choose 3 fault domains and 20 update domains. So you get single VM can be, deployed in 20 different racks if you want. Okay. Another thing in which you can understand update domain is what Microsoft does is during the planned maintenance side, if Microsoft have had to patch anything, do any security upgrades or software patches, so you can understand in a way that they will do those patches in form of update domains. So they'll update one rack first, then they'll update the another rack first. They will not do both simultaneously. Okay. So you have to keep your application or your workload distributed in different update domains. So what they will do is they will update this first. Okay. They'll update this machine first, then they'll update this machine. Okay. They will not update both machines at a time. And your application is distributed. If this rack goes right due to some power failure or network failure, if this fault domain goes, your application will be still available in the fault domain 1 because you have distributed in two fault domains. Okay. And other thing you have to understand, as I said, you can have most of the regions have maximum of 2 or 3 fault domains and up to 20, from 5 to 20 update domains. Okay, Microsoft recommends you use managed disk only for creating VMs. Unmanaged disks are also supported, but they don't give you that reliability. Okay. Okay, and other thing, there are few things which you have to remember. You need to create the virtual machines in the same resource group as the availability scale set. The availability set. So you cannot have them in 2 different resource group. Availability set in one resource group, and the VMs in another resource group. You cannot have them. You have to have them in single resource group. And one virtual machine can only be part of one availability scale. Same machine cannot be part of multiple availability set. Okay. And you assign the virtual machines the availability set during the creation. Once you create the VM, there is no option of assigning availability set. So you have to assign them during the creation only. Okay. So you can see this image I have taken from C# Corners website. You see there, you have 3 availability sets and you have a web server and database server. Okay. So this web application is taking data from these data servers. So what we have done, we have configured in such a way that we have 3 same web servers in 3 different fault domains. Okay. So if anything happens to this fault domain, our application, nothing will happen to our application server. Our users will still access the resources. Okay. And if let's say Microsoft is updating this database, the users can still use this database in different servers. Okay. So fault domains give you protection from power failure and network failure, and update domains gives you from the planned maintenance like software upgrades, security patches, those kinds of things. You can use update domain during there. Okay. So
the application database will be syncing across all those fault domains.
Yes. Automatically it will sync. Yes.
Okay. So do we have to pay extra for this?
Yes, VM will be extra, right? So you have to pay for the VMs.
No, like I mean for the fault domains. Like we have the pricing for the VM, but for determining like, is it like, do we have to determine in how many fault domains do we want to maintain our VM and all those also?
Yes. Yeah, we will do that. Yeah. So we'll create an availability scale set. First, you have to go to the availability sets. You can search availability sets and you can create an availability set. So while creating, so I'll select the resource group I have, and I will call it as PSF avail set 2. Okay, so now you see here you are mentioning that you can have up to 3 fault domains. So I will do or one is the least minimum you have to do. The maximum fault domains you can choose is 3, but I'll choose 2. And update domains in East US, you have up to 20 fault domains. Sorry, update domains. Okay, so in this case I'll select 3. Okay, and I'll use manage disk. Okay, so that is there. And the other concept is proximity placement groups. Okay, this is nothing but you want logically you are grouping them, but you also want you want them to be physically close also. Let's in a single availability set you can have multiple building rights. So your data can be in across multiple buildings, but you want them to be in a single building. You can create a proximity placement group, and you can assign that group. But in case we will leave it. This is nothing but physical. They'll be physically near to each other. Okay, and you create. So now you will just go ahead and create your availability set will be created. Now, if you go to virtual machines, I'll create a virtual machine. I have to select the same resource group. Okay, and I'll call avail you can name anything. Okay, and you select the same region, it automatically select. And in the availability options, you will go and select the availability set. So when you click this, and you will select the availability set what we have created. Now this machine will go behind this availability set. Okay, and you can create the machine completely. Before this, there's nothing else. Only difference while creating the VM is you select the availability set, and all the things are different. You have to select the managed OS disk, and if you want a data disk, you can add that. Networking, same. You want to have a public IP, you can have that, or you want them to be behind a load balancer, you can do that. Okay, you create this. So now you go, you validate, and you can create the machine. But I have already created a machine. I have created 2 machines. Okay, so these 2 machines, if I so you can see I have already created an availability scale set 1, and I have these 2 instances behind it. And you can see this one is in under fault domain 1, and this and it's in for update domain 1, update domain 0 and 0, and the VM2 is in update domain fault domain 1 and fault domain 2. So let's say if something happens to this rack, so I have the other VM running for me. Okay, and if something happens to this, I have this VM running. And if something happens, if any security upgrade is happening on this VM, I have this VM running. So when I created this scale set, I have mentioned that I wanted 2 fault domains and 3 update domains. So I can have one more. I can create a one more VM, and that Microsoft will automatically assign that. Okay. So I hope this is clear.
The assignment of update domains in the fault domain will also be done automatically, or is it up to us to select in the number of update domains in one fault domain?
It's automatic.
Okay.
You can, if you go to the VM, you can also under the availability section, you can see the availability set what is we have created, and you can also see that availability set can only be configured when creating the virtual machines. You must create the virtual machine. You must recreate the virtual machine to move it out of an availability set. Okay, so you have to make sure that you create the availability set first, and then add that machine into that availability scale set. Okay, So this was about availability scale set. Okay. So the next concept is availability zones. So availability zones is nothing but each region we have studied during the Azure fundamentals, that each region in Azure has up to 3 or less than 3 availability zones. So availability is are unique physical locations in a region with independent power and network pooling. So they are independent data centers. Okay. So each availability zone is comprised of one or more data center buildings which houses the infrastructure. Okay. Availability sets provides you protection from hardware failure and unplanned failure, right? Availability zones provide you security from data center failure. If the data center itself goes, some natural disaster happens, the water floods, earthquake, anything, you lost the data center. So availability zones will, protect you from that. Okay, this gives you a 99.99 SLA on your virtual machines. Availability sets gives us 99.95 SLA. Availability zone gives us 99.99 SLA. Okay. So availability is are tolerant to data center failures, redundancy, and logical isolation services. So you can see in a single region, you will have multiple availability zones. Each availability zone is a data center. Okay. So if I go and create a virtual machine, I have to explicitly tell which availability zone I want to add that machine into. Okay. And it is my responsibility to replicate the data also. It will not seamlessly automatically replicate that. Okay. Now I create a VM1, any VM, and I select the availability zone. So in East US, I have 3 zones. Okay. Let's go to UAE. I think UAE has only 2 regions, UAE North. So this region significant demand, so it is not there. This will also happen, and you do not have availability zones there. Okay. So you have to also make sure that you check the region, where you want to do. If I select West India, so West India also I do not have the availability zone option only. Okay. In India, I do not have that, but I hope I'll have that in Central India. Okay. Even in Central India, it is not there. So I have to select a region which is there. I'll select East US only. Okay. Now I have 3 availability zones here. So now I am creating a VM1 and I want this VM to be part of availability zone 1. Okay. This will now if I create another VM called VM2 and I keep it in availability set 2, that will have I will have the application in two regions, but it is my responsibility to make sure that data replicates between that 2 regions. Okay. And I can create that VM. Okay. But this is not usually done. You will not use availability zones while creating this VM, but you have this open. If you want your VM to be a part of 2 different availability zones, you can do that. But how you achieve this? This is not done usually in this way. Okay, you do not go and explicitly tell to check. You do it using virtual machine scale sets. Okay, we'll do that as well. So what a virtual machine scale set? Let's say if you want, if you have an identical VMs that basically process the same workload, okay, then we have to consider virtual machine scale set. Okay. A virtual machine scale sets lets you create and manage a group of load balanced machines. Okay. It's Microsoft responsibility to apply a load balancer and everything, and it will automatically replicate all the data, and they are identical machines. Okay, the VMs can automatically increase and decrease in response to demand or a defined schedule. Okay, if you want to have a schedule, in that day of a time you want the VMs to increase, that can also be done. And in response to any event, that can also be done. Let's say you want, we'll create a CPU utilization is more than 75%. You want the machine to increase. It's called auto scaling, but in Azure it's called virtual machine scale sets. Okay. So you have to define the scaling condition for the scale out and scaling. You have to define that. Okay. Azure supports up to 1000 machines in instance. If you are using the image which is available from Microsoft, if you are bringing your own custom image, then it supports 600 VMs. As I said earlier, you can use availability zones to automatically distribute the virtual machines in a scale set, okay, within a single data center or across multiple data centers. So manage this is always preferred, okay, and there is no additional cost for scale set. You will only pay for underlying compute what you use. Let's say you are creating 3 VMs in 3 different zones, then you will be paying for those VMs. And if because of the scaling condition, if the machine scales out, then you will also pay for that VM. Okay. So you have the option to select the minimum VM size, how much you want to select, you can select that. So let's go to that. I'll go to availability virtual machine scale sets. Okay, I already created one. I have one instance there, but I'll create one more. I'll call it, I'll select the PSF demo 2 in East US 2, and I'll call it as PSF VMS 2. Okay, then I'm selecting the server. Now you see I have the option of selecting the availability zone here. So I will select 3 availability zones. My identical machine, I want them to, for highly available, I want them to in 3 different regions of 3 different data centers of East, the East US region. Okay, I will keep this machine Ubuntu only, and I'll use password. I'll give the username as VMS admin. Okay. And I can select the disk. I'll leave it default. Networking, I'll leave default. It will create. By default, it will not give you any public IP. If you want public IP for your VMs, then you can go and enable the public IP. And you can also enable, because this is a Linux VM, you would like to SSH, you can enable that also in the networking. Then you go to scaling. So if you want Microsoft to do the scaling, manually, you can do that. You want it to be custom. How many initial count of VMs you want? You want 1 VM or you want 3 VM? We have deployed 3 availability zones, right? So we'll take 3 machines, and I want custom. So initially I want the machines to be 3, and I want the maximum machines to be 5. Okay. And how I want them to scale out. So whenever my CPU performance is more than 75%, okay, when my threshold reaches 75%, so it will check after every 5 minutes. The minimum amount you have to select is 5. It will 5 minutes. And how do you want the VM to increase? How many VMs do you want to increase? 1 VM or 2? You can do that. And when do you want it to scale down? When the CPU performance of that machine reaches 25%, you want that machine to be scaling back to the normal number. Okay, do you want diagnostic logs? No, I don't want. Do you want any management? I don't want. Do you want health monitoring? As of now, I don't want. Okay. Enable scaling beyond 100 distance? No, I don't want that. Okay. So now I'm creating this VM with virtual machine scale sets. So this virtual machine scale set will create 3 VMs. Okay. And it will automatically assign the availability zones where the each machine will go. Okay. So the deployment is in progress. It will take some time because we have to deploy 3 machines. So let's wait for that. So till then we'll go for any questions till this deployment happens. Any questions, guys? So you see the demo has failed. Why has it failed? Okay. I have policy assigned to this.
It's exceeded some maximum number of something.
Yeah. Yes. Mine is an MPN partner account, right? So I cannot have more than 1 VM. Lot of VMs created. it is creating more the VMs I am authorized to create. So I hope you guys understand that will create 3 VMs. Okay, I created this virtual machine scale set before the class. And if I go to instances, you can see the VM which is there. This VM I have created, and this is a Linux VM which is running, and the public address also of that. So this will automatically scale. You can see the scaling policy and configuration, how the scaling happens. You can see everything during the scaling. So it will automatically scale in and scale out based on the condition what you have given on the CPU. Okay, and you can see all the instances which are there, and you can manage that instance from here as well. You can stop the VM, you can reimage the VM, you can go inside the VM, and you can do everything. So it has not created the virtual machine scale set which I has created.
Create from Azure description also.
I'm sorry.
I can able to create from Azure subscription.
Yes, you can create that. My subscription is an MTN subscription, so I have a limited usage only. I cannot do much. So, but I hope you guys understood the gist, right? What you can try to do. But with your the subscription account, you can go ahead and create that virtual machine scale set. I can start the VM. We are not going into the virtual machine and managing these virtual machines. We are in the virtual machine scale sets. So you'll see all the scale set and the instances machines associated with the scale set here. Okay. So whenever this will automatically scale and scale out whenever there is a performance, when the CPU performance goes up. Okay. You can just see the disk associated with that. Okay. You can do everything. So this was about virtual machines. I have the administrator. Yeah.
Asif, one question. So when you're saying that this will scale up and scale down based on the traffic, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on the number of availability zones and the number of VMs that we have opted for. Based on that, it will scale up, or is it like irrespective of?
It's not necessary that you have that in availability zone. Without an availability zone also you can do that. You want that in a single data center also you can do that. This I have created. I only opted for one. I did not opt for availability zones. It automatically took 5 fault domains for me to make it available. Okay. So I'll just delete this. Okay. So I did not select any zone here. I just created without the zone. I hope I will be able to create that again.
So basically, the fault domains enable us to like manage the traffic as well, right? Like scaling up and creating.
It is managed by the load balancer. Microsoft will automatically assign a load balancer for the management.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not selecting any availability zone. I'm just going there. I'll give the username as Linux user, and I'll give the password. I hope I should be able to create this. Okay. No, I'm selecting networking. So I'll enable public IP if I want to, and I'll select the port. I'll say okay. Scaling again, I'll give condition. The minimum instance I want is 1, and it will start. The maximum I want is 3. So I am explicitly setting that the VMs as what I have taken here. Okay, the B1 MS machine, 1 core CPU machine. It will take that machine only. Okay, every time it scales up or scales down. Okay, I am saying initially I want the count to be 1, and the scaling policy is custom. So the minimum number of VM should be 1 and the maximum should be 3. So I'm restricting that. So more than 3, it will not scale out. Okay. And when do I want to scale? If the CPU performance is like 60%, I want to scale up. Okay. And every 10 minutes, it will check what is the performance. I want to reduce that to 5 minutes, and I can create it. Do I want boot diagnostic on the VMs? No. I'll create. I think it should create, it should allow me to create, yeah. So for more high availability to increase the SLA, you can use availability zones also. Okay. So what happens then? So your machine will be in more than one data center. Okay. If you do not select an availability set, then Microsoft will automatically select certain fault domains. Okay, based on the size of the machine you want that to increase. So this will create one more availability scale set. So I hope you guys have understood what is availability scale set. If you are coming from AWS background, you will know that we have the Elastic Cloud Compute. We have that option of called auto scaling. So that is similar to availability scale set only.
Yeah, got that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you have that availability scale set also, and you can see it is succeeding. It will success. So if I go and check the instance, what I have here, so it is creating two instances. I think I have changed the number to 2. So it is creating 2 instances. So initially we created with 1, now it is creating 2 instances. So it is automatically assigning the name and the number to them. And it has selected minimum 5 fault domains. The fault domains, 5 different racks. We have 5 domains into the VM with the different public IP. Okay. So this is about availability scale sets. So let me delete this to save cost. So I'm deleting that. Make sure you guys after usage you delete the resources. So this was all about virtual machines. We understand how to create and all those things. The other thing we can do that is about creating the virtual machines using the Azure CLI. So I'll just log into Azure. It will log in. It will ask me to log in. I'll do that. Okay. So you can see I have around. I should have 4 virtual machines which are there. Those virtual machines which are part of availability scale set, you will not see them here. Okay, you will see them only in the virtual machine scale sets. And different virtual machines, the virtual machines what you have created, you will see them in the virtual machine section. So if you have created virtual machines in a virtual machine scale set, you will not see them. So please note that you have to go to virtual machine scale set. So I have few commands here which I'll share it with you guys. One is you log in to Azure, and once you log in, you create the resource group if you want to, or you can use the existing resource group. Okay, I'll create one for the VM creation. So I'm creating a resource group in the East US region, and I'm calling it as PSF Demo 3. And I will be creating a VM. If I want to see, while creating a VM, I want to see there are few things which are required, like the image name. Okay, so you will not be aware of the image name what you want to write. So you can use this command AZ image list. So this will give you the names of all the images available within Microsoft Azure for that, for your subscription. This command will take some time. So you can see you have to use this URL alias while creating. Okay. If you want to check specifically about the OS, so you can do that. Let's say I want to check about CentOS. So I can check that list of CentOS. So I have only one image of CentOS. I can do that. Okay. And the publisher is OpenLogic. You will see the publisher here as Microsoft Windows Server. Okay. So now let's create VM. So what I'm doing, I'm using an easy VM create command, and I'm creating a VM in the resource group which we created just now, and I'm naming the VM as CLI VM, and I'm using image Windows Server 2016 data center, and I'm giving the username as CLI VM admin. So I'll just copy this and I'll enter. So it will prompt me to give admin password.
This image list does not specify the CPU and the RAM
No, it will not.
configurations, right?
No, it will not. I am just creating the VM. You can specify that as well. This QID you can give of that particular, the VM, what you want to do. Right now, Microsoft will take a default, for Windows Server, will take a 2-core 8 GB VM. But if you go to, this command and you list this queue, it will give you this queues also what you want to list. Okay. So you can create the VM with all these commands. Now you can, this is the scope you can do. So I did not want to make things complicated. So I am just giving you small things. Okay.
Okay.
So you can also define
instead
the
of-
subnet, storage queue, everything size is there, right? This size will define the size of the VM.
So can it be the case that we define a customized RAM and CPU core which is not by default present there?
No, you cannot do that. No, you cannot do that. Okay. So all the size what Microsoft gives you, that's the only sizing you have available for you to create the VM.
So do we have a display list for that as well to see the like for Windows 2008 data center that you selected the image name? For that, what are the configurations available? Can we see that at the CLI window?
Any image can be selected for any VM. So these are the commands which you have available for creating this VM. Okay, let me go to that.
So what I mean to say is, like when we are creating the VM, we have a drop down, right, to select the number of CPU and all. So by looking at that, we know that these are our options and we have to select from these.
Yes.
But when we are when we are trying to do the same thing in via the CLI command, we just when we do an image list all, we are just seeing the names.
Yes.
But we are not seeing the available options of what configurations are there.
Yeah,
so
that has to be even if you create it from the portal. Okay. So you will already plan what VM, what image you want, what size of the VM you want. Okay. So you have to, pre-plan it and then select that size and give that command. So as I said, it has taken this DS and V2, this is the default VM it will take if you create a VM. So if I go and create a Windows Server VM here, Microsoft will take that default image. Yes, okay. I'll just name that.
Yeah.
So it will check, it will take certain default images and it will give us that. So this is their, recommended image publisher size. Okay. So you can, it will select a default, but you have the size option where you can give that command, sizing command, and you can change the size. Okay. So these are all the options which you have. You can also mention the availability scale set if you want. You can also give the subnet. You can also give the storage account SKU. Okay, for the managed, whether you want it to be premium or managed, unmanaged, you have this sizing. You can give this sizing also. You can give the public IP also if you're bringing your own public IP. Okay.
Yes, so basically the expectation here is that if we are going to create VMs using the CLI commands, the expectation is that we are well aware of what we are creating and what specific requirements we have, and based on that we are creating, right?
Even if you create from a portal, you have to have that requirement. You cannot go and select any machine, right? You have to specifically, you have to take that input from the team or anyone, what machine they want. Okay, so that has to be done beforehand. Even if you create, the only thing is here you have the UI to select that machine. There you have to go and explicitly type that command of that machine. That's all. But
Okay. Okay.
set to which machine to select, it depends upon what your project manager or anyone from your team or your finance department, what they have agreed to purchase from Microsoft, what reserved instance you have taken. You have reserved this instance for, let's say for example, you paid Microsoft for 8 core 32 GB instance for 3 years reservation, right? So you will select
Yeah.
this machine only. So this is already planned in beforehand before creating the VM.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this VM is created. You can see it comes with the public IP and everything, and the virtual network also is created by itself. So I just created the VM. So all other configuration Microsoft has done from behind, taking the default. Okay. So you can go through this link and explore, the about the while creating. So this ends the virtual machine session. Okay. Next thing today we'll go ahead is with the storage accounts. Okay. So this is a relatively small topic. Lot can be done with storage accounts if you are a programmer. If you're, but in this, we'll just cover the storage services what we have. Okay. So as you know, Azure gives you storage which includes objects, files, disk, queue for messaging, and table storage also. If you want to have a NoSQL kind of structured data in table format, you can use Azure table storage. If you have any object storage where you want to save unstructured data like images, videos, files, or your virtual machine images, you can use the object storage. And if you want to store files, logs, anything, you can use the file storage. Managed disk and unmanaged disk we have been using with the VMs. Another is the queue service for messaging. Okay, these services are highly durable and highly available. They are secured by default. They are scalable, managed by Microsoft, and you have multiple ways to access these services. You can access it via portal, through access keys, through state access signatures, to software APIs, to REST APIs, through CLI. You can access it in many ways. Okay. So these are the core services what Microsoft offers. One is called Azure Blobs. Okay. So this is a massively scalable object store for text and binary data, images also, and audio videos also. And you have Azure Files. Microsoft is very famous for its file server capabilities, the Windows Server file server. So same way in Azure also you have a file server which is managed by Microsoft called Azure Files. Okay. Which can be deployed on-prem or on the cloud as well. You can also deploy this file server on-premise infrastructure. Another is Azure Queues, which are messaging store for reliable messaging between application components. And you have Azure Tables, as I said, a NoSQL store for schema-less storage of structured data. Okay, and you have Azure Disk, the block level storage for our VMs. Okay. Storage account kinds. Microsoft gives you more, these are the three primary, okay, storage account types. Both the general purpose VM1, V1 and blob storage are legacy, but you have still available them. The general purpose 2 is what is advisable to take now. Okay. And you have performance tiers. There are two performance tiers. One is standard and premium. So the only difference here is the cost as well as the SLA what you get with the storage accounts. And there are access tiers also. Okay, you can have hot access tier. This is for frequently accessed data. So the cost will be high, but you will not have any read-write operation cost. Okay. Then this is for data which is frequently accessed. Then you have full access tier. This tier is optimized for storing data which you access in once in 30 days. Okay. cost is relatively lower than hot access, but you will have read and write operation cost. Other is archive. Archive name states it's for archival data. Storage cost will be very less, but you will have huge read and write operations. And it takes some times for the read and operation to happen. Okay. First, if you try to read any data which is in archive, first it will bring into hot access tier, and then only you will be able to read that. You cannot read the data directly from the access archive tier. Okay. If you go to the pricing calculator again, you go to storage accounts. I'm just taking any location. You have this type, right? So I'll just select block. Okay. And you have the standard and premium tier. Okay. I'll take standard, and you have the storage type as these three storage. So this is advisable general purpose too. Okay. Redundancy will look into next slide, and you have access tiers, hot, cool, and archive. So if you are taking 1000 GB of data, so it's costing you 1374 rupees. But if you take cool, it will cost you 1000 rupees. And if you take archive, it will cost you 65 rupees only. So it's relatively very too low. But you will see the read write operations. Here the write operation it's costing you 35, but you do not have any data retrieval and data write charges. Okay, they are zero in the hot tier. Okay, hot access tier. But if you go to cool, you will see for every 1 GB, okay, you have the retrieval operation of retrieval cost of 66 paisa. Okay, for every GB, if you try to retrieve the data from cool tier, it will charge you this much. Okay, and if you go archive, it will charge you 1.32 paisa. Okay, so 1 rupees 32 paisa. So it will charge you for the data retrieval. Again, for data write, it is not charging you anything. But if you increase this, it's not charging. But for retrieval, it is charging. So for to read also, to retrieve the data and to read it, it will charge you. But for write, no one charges you. Okay. I hope this is clear. The other cost you will have is with the redundancy. Okay.
Asif,
Yeah.
the data write, is it there can we rewrite the data, or is it only the first time you would be writing and you would not be
No,
charged
you
on
can
that?
read it. No, anything which comes into Azure is free of cost. Anything
Okay.
which goes up to Azure is charged. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then you have the redundancy options. You have basically 5 redundancy options. Okay. One is locally redundant storage. You have the zone redundant storage. Then you have the geo redundant storage. Then you have geo zone redundant storage. Then you have read access geo redundant storage. Then you have read access geo zone redundant storage. So what this means? So locally redundant storage, simply understand, you get this SLA with 11 nines, and your data is replicated in three places within a single physical data center. Okay. So let's say our data center is in Hyderabad. So your data will be in Hyderabad, but within Hyderabad data center, it will be in 3 different racks. Okay. So it will be fault tolerant. Okay, LRS. So this will cost you less, and it will gives you 11.9 SLA. Okay. What is zone redundant? This you will have the SLA will increase to 12 lines, and this will replicate the data to a different zone. Okay. In locally redundant center, we have only in Hyderabad, but if you take zone redundant, your data will also be there in Bangalore. In Bangalore also, it will be in 3 different racks. In Hyderabad also, it will be in 3 different racks. So if anything happens to Hyderabad data center, your data will be there in the Bangalore data center. Okay, that is how you get the redundancy here. Okay, this is within the region, within the same India region. This geo redundant, what it will do, you will have in Hyderabad also. Hyderabad, India is one region. You will also have in Dubai, because Dubai is another region, and this will give you 99.169 SLA. So it is LRS, but in 2 different regions. Okay, I hope this is clear. Okay, and this is ZRS, zone redundant, but in 2 different regions. So in Dubai, in UAE also, you have 2 data centers. In Hyderabad, you have 2. In India, you have 2 data centers. So your data will be in 4 different data centers. Okay, and in the data center it will be in 3 different racks. So it will cost you more. Okay, so you will have a primary region as well, then a secondary region. So you will read the data from primary region. If something happens to the primary region, then the data, you will read the data from the secondary region. Okay, but if you want to read the data from both the regions at a time, you want the Dubai users to read the data in the Dubai location and the India users to use the data in the India region, then you can take the read access GRS and read access GZRS. Okay, that's the only difference between them. So the cost, you know, when you, in terms of cost, this is not this is cheaper, this is, you know, higher than this is higher than this is higher than this, and these two are the highest. Okay, and when we create a storage account, we will have these options of selecting this. Okay. Okay, when we talk about encryption, Microsoft automatically encrypts your data when it is in the cloud. Okay, so the data in the storage account is encrypted and decrypted transparently using this AES 256-bit AES encryption. It is similar to your BitLocker. If you are aware of BitLocker or Windows Server or Windows, it is similar to that. The storage encryption is enabled by default and you cannot disable it. Okay, data is stored encrypted regardless of the performance tier or the access tier. Okay, or the redundancy also. Any redundancy if you take, it is encrypted by default, and there is no additional cost for encryption. Okay, and every storage service in Microsoft will have an endpoint to access the data. So if you take a blob storage, so this will be the endpoint for that blob storage, and the name should be unique. Okay, storage account name should be unique because we'll access all the storage account using HTTPS or HTTP. Okay, so all the storage accounts, all the table storage, all the queue storage, all the Azure files will have their own service endpoints. We'll know about this when we create a storage account. Okay, so blob, we'll create a storage account first. Okay, so I'll go to my Azure portal. I'll go to storage account. So I already created one. So I'll select a resource group, because we know that all these storage accounts are under a resource group, and we give a unique name to this. I'll give it PSF demo SA2. Okay. Now I have the option of selecting the performance tiers as standard and premium. Make sure, you know, based on your requirement and the pricing, you will select this. Then is the storage account kind. By default, you have to select the B2. Now comes the replication. So now you have the selecting the replication type. You can select the locally redundant. You want your data to be locally redundant. So this will replicate the data in 3 different racks within the same data center. So I'll select that for demo purpose. And you have the access tier as cool and hot. Archive will not come here, but once you upload that file or the container, then you can archive it. Then other is networking, where you want the storage accounts to get access to. I'll open it to all the public endpoints, but if you want to select, you can select the networks. Okay, you can select the virtual networks what you have created. So, or you want private endpoints also, you can. I'll select public. Then data protection, soft delete. So what happens, right? If you want to safeguard your data from accidental deletes, then you can enable soft delete. So what happens if you delete the data, it will not go away. You can retrieve it back. Okay, within, you can set the timing within how many days you want to do. The maximum you can do is 365 days, but this will cost you. Okay, remember that. This is for blob and for same for file share also. Okay, so I'll disable this as of now.
So as if it will cost based on the days, or it will
based on the days as well as the data size.
Okay.
Okay, because the cost is per month, right? So it will cost month. So now we'll study about this when we create. Do I want the blob to have public access? Yes, I want that as of now. And if I want to give any tags, I can give, and just go ahead and create this. Okay, so it's getting created. Before we go that, I will go into the which I have already created. So I created a storage account, which is, if you can see. So I have a storage account with the performance tier is standard and access as hot, and the replication is locally redundant storage. Okay, and this is in the same resource group. Okay, I want to give access. I can give access at this to the users. Okay, and in the storage account, I have these services. I can create blobs. Containers are nothing but folders which you can create. Okay, I created folder 1, folder 2, and I have uploaded some data into that. I uploaded image and all those things. Okay, so this is the storage account which I created. We'll understand about the blobs first, then we'll understand file share. So I can create a container nothing but folders. I can create one more folder if I want to, and I want it to be private as of now. We'll make it public later on. Okay, and I can upload data into that folder. Okay, now I have uploaded this image. I can upload one more image. Okay, so I have two images. Okay, in this in this folder container. Okay, in this folder name. So now if I go to the image, this image, as I said, it will have an endpoint, right? It will have its own unique URL. As this is private, we will not be able to see. You can see we have that blob core. Okay, this is the public URL. This is our storage account name. Okay, this is the public URL for the storage account. Then you will see the container name, and then you will see the file name. Okay, so this is the endpoint for this image. Okay, so each storage service will have its own endpoint name. So blob is nothing but blob. Here you will see files. Here you will see tables. Here you will see queue. Okay, and then you will see the folder, and then you will see the file name for all those storage services. Okay, I'll go to this folder and I'll change the access level to blob access. I can give access, anonymous read access to blobs or to the containers, but in this case I'll give it to the blob. So now if I refresh, after some time, I should be able to see this image because I've made it public anonymous access. Okay. So I got this image. Okay. Similarly, I can see this image also. I have this. So this is publicly accessible image. So I can do this. Okay, if you do not want the access to happen, you just have to go and change the access level to private. So no one will be able to see except you. But this is rarely done. You want people to have access to that. So this is how you access the images and folders. The other thing, you can access your files, everything using this portal. The other way is use a free service called Azure Storage Explorer. Okay, so this Storage Explorer, you can go, just type Azure Storage Explorer. Okay, the first site, and you can download it and run it. Okay, you can download it for Windows or Linux. Okay, and for Mac OS, you have options for all those. I am using Windows. You can just go and click right, and it will happen. And once you download it, it will look in this way. Okay, and you have the option of adding the storage accounts. Okay, so I'll add a storage account. I'll click new. So it will ask me to log in. should give me access by now. I don't know what happened. Yeah. So now if I go, you can see all the accounts which are associated with my login, all the storage accounts and disk, all the storage services. I will see all those things. And if I open the storage accounts, I can see all the blob containers what I have. Okay, and I can see all the folders, and I can see all the data which is available in that folder. Okay, and I can upload the data from here also. I can upload folders, and I can upload anything from here as well if I want to. Okay, so this is for management, for ease of use. Microsoft has given this service for free. So if I want to upload anything, I can upload directly from here. So let me give me 1 minute. I do not have any image. So I can upload if I want to anything. I can upload it from here. Okay. Then I have all the information about the about that file also. I can see the access tiers and everything what I have. Okay. I don't know why this is coming every time. And I can delete the data if I want to, all those things I can do from here. Okay. So I hope this is clear. So this is one way you can sign in with the, with your username. The other ways you can do it with the access keys. Okay. So this is my one more account, my personal account which I have created. If I go to storage accounts, I have created few storage accounts here just for the demo purpose. So one way is access to the portal, other is to the Storage Explorer. In Storage Explorer, you can authenticate using your username, but in some cases you don't do that. You only give the access key to make it secure. So each storage account will Microsoft will generate 2 access keys. Okay. This is also used for programmatic purpose. If you are doing some development and your application is accessing the storage account, then also you will use these keys to access that. Okay. So how you do it? You just copy this. You have 2 keys. If one key is compromised, you can use the other key. So one key is more than enough. I just go here and I go to connect again. I'll add an account and I'll use the storage account name and access keys. So I'll give the storage account access key here. Sorry, the access key here, and the storage account name is RG SA1I. I think this is the name. Let me check the name again. Yeah. Okay. And I have to give the display name. So once display name is given, and it will automatically connect and it will give you in the storage accounts, and whatever are available in that storage account, I get all those things. So I have 2 containers and that container has one image. I don't know which container has that image. So and I get that access to that container also. Okay. So this is, you can also give access to people based on the access keys and the storage account name. Now this is given the other way, the more secure way to give this is using shared access keys. Okay. So this shared access signatures can be given on the storage account name, okay, or on the file name. If I go to this storage account, I have 2 containers, okay. If I upload a file, okay, I want to give, I want someone to get this access. I just show this first. This is privately and you cannot access this. Okay. Now what I am doing, I am generating a shared access signature. Okay. So what permissions I want to give? So I want to them to read, create, write, and delete whatever they want to do. And I am giving them for a certain time. I am giving them today. Okay. From this time from 12:20 p.m. till 8:20 p.m. today. and I'm using the signature key, and I'll generate the token. So this will generate one URI for me. Okay, I'll copy this. I'll go to my Storage Explorer. Then I'll go here. I'll add an account. Okay, this time I'll use the shared access signature. Here I'll give the container name. Okay, so it is saying that I do not have a list permission to do this. So this SSN token does not have the required permissions to do. What I have to do is I have to go here. Okay, I have to give the permissions, proper permissions to do that. Okay, I hope this should work. Sorry. So again, it is giving me the same error. Okay, now I got it. Just give me 1 minute, guys. If I have this public access. This should by default work. I don't know why I am having this. This should work, but it's not working. Okay, I'll check this and I'll get back to you on this. It should work, but I don't know why it is not working. Let me check on this level, on the storage access level. So the other option is you can do at the storage access level also. You can give the resources what you want them to allow, and similarly you can select and you can generate the token also here. So I have selected all the blob, file, table, and that is the reason it is giving me all the service tokens. But we will select only blob and check the blob, how blob works. So yeah, so there is some problem with that string. I don't know what happened. So this is the easiest way. I can see the blob also directly. I have given the read access to the blob with the URI. So I can see that image. I will check that image thing why it did not work, but it should work by default. But I would have made an error. But I have given the read access to this blob storage. So you can see I am able to read this with the some time only. So after this time, right? Okay, I will not have access to this storage account. Okay, I will not have access after 8 p.m. So if you want to give someone access for a certain time, let's say for 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days, you can do that. You can select the date and you can give them. Okay, so when it's required, you can give them. And if you only want them to give blob, you don't want them to give file or queue and table, you only select and generate the token for blob and you give them blob storage. Okay, and if you want them to give access to file, you generate the token for file server and you use that URI for connecting that file server. Okay, I hope this is clear. So these are the ways you can access the the data within your storage account. The other topic which I wanted to talk was about the file share. Okay, so I hope you guys are aware, right? You will have in the corporate environment, you will have your file share associated with your with your company, and you can go and see the data which is available for you to access. So that requires a Windows file server or a Linux Samba server to have all those things. But in Azure, with Azure File Share, without having a Windows server, you can create a file share. Okay, so this file share is nothing but an easy cloud file system, which is nothing but your SMB. It uses your SMB file share, SMB protocol. Okay, and this file share can be mounted concurrently by cloud or on-premise deployments. Okay, for your Windows, for Linux and Mac. Okay. And if you are already having a Windows file server and you want that file server to sync with your cloud file server, then you can use a service called Azure File Sync, and you can sync that data also. Okay. The only important prerequisite you should understand is your ISP or your firewall should allow the port 445. If it is not allowing, then you will not be able to use the file share. Okay. So as you can see, in this account, in the storage account, I already created a file share, okay, which is called PSF demo SA1 file share. And if I go to my system, I see that as a network here, and I see all the folders and files which are available there here, okay. And if I try to upload any file, if I try to create a file here, okay, where is that notepad? Okay. I just created a new file here, and this will automatically get synced here. So this is seamless. I have the same folders here, and you see the file is created here. If I upload any file here, okay, you will see that file getting synced here as well. Okay, you see this is how seamless it is, and it's very easy to create and easy to map also. The only thing you have to do is you just go to a storage accounts, okay, whatever storage account you have created, then you go to file share and you create a file share. So I'll call it as PSF demo SA1 file share 1, okay, and you can give quota how much you can. The maximum you can do is 5 TB for standard storage and 100 TB for premium storage. I'll just give 50 GB here, and I'll create. So now this will create a file share. Once it is created, I have to connect it. So to connect it, I have to, it will create a drive for me. I just have to give the name, okay, and I have to open PowerShell to check if the connection is working properly. I will run it as an administrator. And I'll run this, okay. So I have no error. I have the connection. My ISP provider has allowed it. I'm able to reach, okay. So I'm able to reach, okay. My file share is added. Now I just have to go to my file share, properties. I'll check the name, okay. I'll go to this PC, okay, and I'll map the drive, okay. I'll name it Vive. I just have to change this to this, and I want the login to happen. It will try to connect. It will ask the access key. I just go to the file share and take the key. I give the the storage account name, and I give the key.
Why are there two keys listed there, Asif?
If one key gets compromised, now you can use the other key. That's the only, for redundancy purpose, they are giving me two keys. Now you can see that I have two file shares associated. One is the file share which I created already. Now I have this file share. If I upload any file here, or if I create any file here, this will automatically get added. Okay. So I have created a file share, and if I go to this file share and my storage account, and I go to this file share, I'll see the documents which are there. Now I should see the documents. It will take some time to sync, but they will sync. Okay. So I have all those documents. If I'll upload anything, it will automatically sync. If I want to add a folder, I can add any folder. If I want to do, I can add it from here. It will automatically get added. So I can use this. This is just like your on-prem file share. You can also control access, using your file share with Azure AD Active Directory domain service. You want some users to have control, what they can log in, what they cannot log in, what folder level access. You can give all those access with this service also using Azure Active Directory domain service. This is the managed service from Microsoft. So you can have all the group policies, if you want to create. Okay. The small way, if you do not want to spend that money, you create multiple file shares with multiple teams. You create a one file share for sales team, marketing team, and for finance team, and you can give access to those users. You can map that, drive to that user's laptop as an administrator. So you have this option. So a single user can have multiple file share. Okay, as you can see, I have multiple file shares with me. So I hope this is also clear, right? Simple concept of file share and blobs. Okay. Any questions on this?
Mr. Asif,
Yeah.
can we try that one, like, going to Azure Active Directory and adding that user?
No, that will take a lot of time because I do not have, I cannot create Active Directory domain services in my first thing. And that is also out of the scope of this training. That's the reason I am not doing that, because my account will not allow me to create that also, because I am not the global admin.
Right.
Not allow me to create, yeah. So you have that option also. If you go to this link, Azure File Share, Azure AD Authentication. So you have that option of using Azure AD Domain Service to authorize file level access to your Azure files. So you can go through this and configure in that way. Okay. So you have
This
that
is a single
service.
file you're saying.
I'm sorry.
Similar to single sign-on.
Not only single sign-on, but you will have NTFS permissions, right, which you give on file level.
Yes.
File level and folder level. So if you want to give that in Azure File Share also, you can do that using Azure Active Directory domain services. This is a managed domain service. Usually in our on-premise environment, we will have our Windows server who will act as a domain controller, and we will have our group policies there, right? So in our case, we are using this managed service, which is a serverless service, and we are also using a serverless domain controller. Okay.
Okay.
This is also a managed service. Azure Active Directory domain services is also a managed service. You will not maintain any VM or Windows server here, but you will have a domain controller here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And the other thing about these storage accounts, what I wanted to tell was, okay. So if I go to storage account, any of the storage account what I have, so you have all the, you see, you have the geo replication. If you want to enable, you can do that. You have the access key. You also have the storage explorer here, which is in preview. Okay. You have the other important thing I just wanted to release. You can also host a static website and your account. Okay. We missed this. So what you have to do is you create a storage account. Okay. Normal storage account. You go to static website and you enable it. Okay. Once you enable it, this will give you an endpoint. Okay. And you need to have two files. One is index.html, other is 401.html. So once you enable that, so what it will do is, it will create a container called /$web and $logs. If I go to $web container, you see my files, of my website. Okay. These are all my website files, and this is the HTML file, and this is the website which I showed yesterday, right? The only thing you have to understand it will not be SSL encrypted. If you want the SSL encryption is to do HTTPS encrypted, you have to use CDN, okay, content delivery network for that. Okay, if you are hosting it on static website on the storage accounts, you have to use content delivery network. And once you do upload all this data, you go to this container and you take this and you add a C record in your domain register. Okay. I have my domain registered in GoDaddy. So if I go to my domain and DNS, you will see this record which I added, okay, the CNAME record. So this is the only thing which I did. Once the endpoint which I got from here, okay, I have taken this, I just copied this from here, and I have given that, okay, and it will take this. The only prerequisite before you do that is you have to verify your domain in Azure, okay. So how can you do that? You can go that doing, you can add it here. You can go and add it in Active Directory domain services in your custom domains. Okay, you can see I've added and verified it. So once I verified it, how did I verify it? I gave this record. Okay, so this record verified my domain. This is the only prerequisite to create that static the website. Okay, so I hope so you can host static small website, and if you want this to be HTTP secure, then you can use CDN instead of CDN profile. Instead of you create that account, you take that name and you create that CDN profile. I will not go through this, but you have that, you can create the endpoint name and you can select the origin as your storage static website, and you can give that name, what name it was this, right? I can give this. So this will create a CDN record for me, which will be SSL secured, and it will give me one more endpoint. I just copy that and I will add that. Instead of this, I'll add the CDN CNAME, and my website will be secured. The reason I'm not doing it, it will cost me money. So that is the reason I'm not doing it myself. So I hope that is clear. Okay. So we'll end the day here. Okay. The next week we have 2 topics to cover. One is the virtual networking, which will start with the next Saturday. Then we'll go with the business continuity and disaster recovery services. We have covered most of them, but we'll only look the Azure Site Recovery and Azure Backup Service. Okay. So any questions on today's work or last class work? And before you do everything, make sure you delete everything. Okay. To save cost. We'll say that it's deleting. Yeah.
I have a small doubt. Okay.
Yeah.
Thing is like whenever I'm just trying to create a VM, right? It's almost taking up 12,000 kind of thing. So for 1 month, is it for 1 month, or else like would it be charging the complete amount, the subscription what I have?
It will show you per hour there, 12,000 per hour. But
Sorry?
whenever you are using, it will show the cost. It will show, right? It will show you per 1 hour. So you don't create a big machine. Create a small machine.
Yeah, I was just creating the VM of yesterday. What we have checked, right? Windows machine.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I mean, would that be the one-time cost, or would it be like if we can remove the card, then would the subscription would be still there, or else like how?
No, it will not work. But they will not bill you until unless you upgrade it. Okay. They will bill you only once you upgrade it. Okay. Once your limit is over, it will not allow. It will say your subscription has disabled. Okay. It will not bill you. You see here active, right? Here you will see as disabled. Okay. You will see as disabled once your limit is crossed or you cross the 1 month time. Okay. Then it will ask you to upgrade. Okay. Yeah. So you can go and create. See, when you create the VM, right, it will show you only the hourly cost. It will not show you the monthly cost. So now, guys, my question to you guys is, I am trying to delete this machine which is in availability scale set. Okay. Will I be able to delete this machine or not?
No, you will first have to remove it from the availability scale set, I believe, right? And then you can delete the VM.
Let's see what's happened. So it will allow me to delete. Okay. It will allow me to delete both the machines. It will allow me to delete. Even if I, now what happens if I remove the availability scale set, not the VM? Now what will happen? So I have these two scale sets, right? I do not have a VM. What will happen now? So this will delete the availability scale set, but this will not delete the VM.
VM.
Okay.
Same as
So-
AWS, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah. So it will delete the availability scale set. Now you see error. It is not allowing me to delete. I made a mistake there. So it is not allowing me to delete. So because a VM is associated with that. So I have to remove the VM first, then I can delete the availability scale set.
Yeah, one thing, if I stop
Yeah.
the VM, if I stop
Mhm.
this VM, then I can delete that available skill set at the back end.
No, you cannot. It did not allow me to do it.
No, if I stop that one.
No, even then it will not allow because you have the VM associated, right? So VM
Yes.
will have its disk associated. So you have to delete that disk also. So when
Okay,
you delete this VM, it will delete the disk also.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
And the other thing is also we have to delete the virtual machine scale sets also. I will confirm it. So make sure you delete. So these kinds of interview questions only will come. I'm sorry, not an interview. The examination questions. You want to you will get questions like you want you are the administrator of this company. You have to deploy machines with they should reach and they should get an SLA of 99.95%, and they'll give you options. You will install that machine with load balancer or premium SSD or availability scale set or availability zones. So you have to select the appropriate option there. So for 99.95 SLA, you have to select the availability set. And if for 99.5, what will you select? Can anyone help with that answer?
Availability zone.
No. See, for 99.95, we have selected availability sets. Okay, my question is 99.95, not 95, just 5. What will you do? Standard
Select standard
SDD.
disk.
Yeah. For 99.9, premium.
SDD. Premium
No,
disk.
premium SSD or ultra disk.
Okay.
Okay. Standard will give you only this much. Okay. 99% SLA will be by HDD. Okay.
Hmm.
If you want 99.99, then availability.
I think
zone.
standard is only 95%, Asif, not 99%. Only standard is only 95 standard HDD, and SSD is 99.5 and 99.95.
Let us check that. Okay, yeah. Thanks for correcting. It's 95%. Okay. So 95%. So you will have these questions in your exam. So mostly you'll get questions about availability scale set and availability set and availability zone. And you will also get, you have similar kind of application. You want to, load balance, automatically scale up and scale down. What will you do? Then you will get questions. You will say, they'll give you a question, you have implemented Azure availability scale set and you have selected 2 fault domain and 5 update domains. Now Microsoft is planning for a planned maintenance. Will your VMs will be, if VM, if the fault domain, and they'll give you one diagram stating the fault domain 1 is having update domain 1, 2, 3, okay, and fault domain 2 is having update domain called 4, 5. So Microsoft is planning to doing a, there is a hardware failure and fault domain is gone. So will your machine will be up or not? Okay. So you'll get these kinds of questions. If update is happening to update domain 1, will your machine in update domain 4 will be active or not? It depends upon the diagram what they give. Okay, so you have to understand that properly. So most of the questions will come from 3-4 questions will come from this topic only. Okay, lot
have
of
a-
available. Yeah.
You'll have a
Sorry?
scenario. You'll
Yeah,
have a
you
scenario.
have. Yeah, previously we had labs also. Right now
Yeah.
we do not have labs for 103, but 104 we have labs. If you have lab, you will 100% pass the exam. Even if you create something, they will pass you. So right now there are no labs in the exam, so all you'll get something from 42 to 57 questions, 60 questions you'll get.
Okay, fine.
So we'll go networking, virtual network next week, and then we will understand the the business continuity disaster recovery plan. Okay. So we'll end this day here, guys. Take care, and let's meet next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Asif.
Thank
Have a nice
Bye.
day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.